Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. Today we're joined by Jason Yarusi. Jason is an active real estate syndicator and real estate investor. Jason and his wife Pili founded Yarusi Holdings, a multifamily investment firm with over 1,100 units under management since 2017. The firm repositions properties through operational efficiencies, renovations, and complete rebranding. Jason also hosts the Multifamily Live podcast, a podcast that provides actionable content and tools to build and strengthen your multifamily business. Jason is the founder of the New Jersey Multifamily Live Club with over 2,000 members that focuses on real estate syndication and multifamily investing, and also trains others on the success formula for buying apartment buildings. Jason has started and exited multiple businesses in the past 15 years, and his family construction business has a niche industry position in raising and moving structures. The company has elevated over 2,000 homes in the last 7 years. And beyond real estate, Jason spends time with his wife, Pili, and 3 young kiddos, Luke, Lily, and Leo, and is an avid CrossFitter and now lives in Tennessee. Jason, my friend, so good to see you. Welcome to the show. Really looking forward to this, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in here. So I've had some updates to our bio. So that was a long wordsmith there of what you just put together there. So I appreciate you taking the time to set forward the narrative. But I'm psyched, man. Let's go.
Yeah, 100%. And for folks who didn't listen, Jason has a really strong podcast. He welcomed me on his show a few years ago, and it definitely goes down as one of my favorite interviews. Definitely like-minded, and Jason is doing some awesome things. So really look forward to jumping into this. So, I mean, why don't we kick it off with that, Jason? I mean, tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got kind of into real estate, businesses, and of course we have to jump into fitness,
sure,
ultra events as well. But let's start there.
So not the traditional path, right? Which can set the narrative for a lot of people, is that I actually met Pili, my now wife, in New York City back in 2003. She was running a pretty crazy big outdoor New York City bar at the time, and I was there just coming back from doing working over in Europe. That I was just looking for a job, and a friend of mine had worked in the past, and they had some construction work to be done there, and that's how I first met Pili. Fast forward, it took about 10 years to look my way for us to get married. But in between, she had moved back to California, moved back to Hawaii, came back to this bar. And this bar, I started managing it, and it grew almost like 25 times in revenue. It became the biggest outdoor New York City bar at the time. Just a massively successful place. It was a ton of fun. And it was great. It was a great learning experience, great way to learn about watching companies grow, expand, build, right? But fast forward, Pili and I get together. Hurricane Sandy ravages the East Coast, right? So a lot of people in New Jersey, their houses got flooded. And my dad had this small construction company, still has this small construction company where he lifts and moves buildings, lifts and moves houses. He's done this for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons he lifts houses, actually takes the house and picks it up higher, is to meet FEMA requirements, hopefully cut down the flood insurance, and hopefully prevent the house from ever flooding again. Well, his business, doing 12, 13 jobs a year, explodes, goes to thousands of calls in a week, right, because of this storm. And so my brothers, working for me at the time, we had, in the meantime of running that bar, we had opened some restaurants, opened and sold a brewery. We're doing some other things there in New York City, but we decided to just go out there and just help Dad. And it was a great experience. My brother came, of course, Pili came out, we were now a couple. And it was that first point of just helping Dad to that next piece. What we knew all along is that even while we're working at the bars, is like they're service driven, right? And while it can be fun and can be engaging, be rewarding, it's due, right? And without the do, there is no get, right? So potentially, if you're not out there doing the construction work, there's no income, there's no revenue, right? So we wanted to start. At the time, Pili was pregnant with our first kid, and we go from working real nights, now working, if we had 25 hours in a day, 8 days a week, we could have used them, right? Because that's how busy it was with the construction world. And so we just said, well, we have to find a way to get our time back. And that was the most important thing. We didn't want to grow up and just be, have our kids. We were just raising our kids. We just were never around, or the day was driving us because we were service oriented. I had watched my father just not be home a lot growing up because of that same thing, right? These jobs, it's not like you could do a lot of these in one town, right? You were driven by the area. So he'd be going to Pennsylvania, or, all the way to South Jersey, just because that's where these random jobs of lifting and moving buildings were. So he wasn't home a lot. And I didn't want that same experience for my kids. So we just kept looking at what else is out there. And real estate kept coming to mind. We kept having that conversation that real estate was that path forward, but we just didn't know where to start. So we did what we thought was logical. Pili went out and got her real estate license, and this is at the time we were pregnant with our second kiddo, and we started flipping and wholesaling houses, doing some Airbnbs. And we quickly learned, while it was going well, we were just basically adding ourselves another service business on, right? Another active job. So here we are, busy, still helping to have the construction. Now we have all this other activity on top of it. We're just stacking activity, and we were going further away from that goal. Well, it took Pili to meet someone at a RIA event who was doing out-of-state rentals. And that was that switch where you said, interesting, right? You could put together a process, put together a management squad, put together the avenue forward, and then allow the property to be operated that could produce cash flow. And that was that first aha moment. So we jumped in, started buying some duplexes, some 2s, 3s, and that was going very well. But we soon realized that the scalability of there was the cap, right? It was going to be an efficiency nightmare if we were trying to build a portfolio of just duplexes and triplexes, just either all over one city or multiple cities. So we kept looking for that next piece. And I came upon a great podcast just like this. They were talking about large apartment investing, and that was that aha, that's it. That's the piece of the puzzle where we could put all the parts together and basically operate a business. Because just like restaurants, I had a 12-seat restaurant in New York City. I had the bar, the outside bars, you could have 5,000 people there. And they're both the same operation, right? But you get more scalability when you go larger, right? There's more economies of scale because you can treat it like a business, right? You can treat it like a firm. So the large apartment investing, we could buy these larger assets. They can have a full-time staff that can operate it, right? And we can put together an efficient plan to make it a better place to live. So we dove all in, selling those 2 and 3 units, and dove all in to large apartment investing. And in 2017, brought our first property. It was a 94 unit. And since then have done maybe 16, 17 transactions all the way through that have now equated to, a little over about 1,600 units, about another 50, 60 million in the pipeline currently.
Wow, that's really awesome, Jason. It's interesting, right? So we talk a lot about really, wealth strategy. And I know, we talked about my book when we were on your show as well. And it's interesting how you guys kind of came into this with really the time being your greatest asset, right? Yeah. And you kind of focusing on that as the cornerstone of your wealth strategy. What else were some pieces kind of your personal wealth strategy on this journey that you can share?
The bar, I'm not going to say it wasn't lucrative, but we would work, all summer. That's where it was made, right? So every single day, all summer, like, on a Saturday, you'd get there at 9 a.m. and leave at like 1 a.m. Right. And but that was what it would took. And it's just not sustainable to a path. And so you look forward here, you have to find that the time and just the ability to do things that you want to do today does not last, that you can do them to tomorrow. We have that piece of the puzzle, like, well, I'll build up and I'll do this today. And then at 65, at 65, like, there's so much road in between. Like you can't designate that at 65 you will do all these things. Like there's a window here today that if, I don't know, you want to go, jet skiing, like there's just certain things that are going to go away from you. And if you're constantly looking at just driving the force now and saying, I have to do this now, and then I'll get rewarded later. Like, is that the life you want? Is that what you want? And so we wanted to get back to just say, well, if I want to go to all of my kids' school activities, go to their sports activities any day of the week, why can't I? Why do I have to say, oh, the job's driving my narrative? Because we're one of the few countries where it's the work is who we are, right? Like in so many other countries, it's not the work who's actually who we are. But here, what do you do for a living? That's the common question, because that almost represents us. And we see this loss of identity a lot. You can see it in people who train all their life for the Olympics, or are sports players that just have a hard time adapting after. But you see the same thing for people that have worked in one corporate job, right? And it can be taken away from you so easily. I mean, we look at, Coinbase just laid off 2,000 people, Tesla, laying off people. And these are people who potentially just thought they had, we'll say, sustainability, right? So we wanted to understand that we have to create our sustainability, and it has to be a life that we can build into, that we can replicate and we can enjoy. And that's where the piece of the puzzle has come with us saying to use multifamily for our wealth building strategy, because it allows us to have active income, have cash flow, take advantage of the tax advantages. We've now started 7-figure multifamily. We have a great mastermind. We have a bunch of members in there looking to accomplish the same thing. And as we go through those pieces of the puzzle, we say, well, can we get more time back, right? It's always the piece. How can we make it more efficient? And there's still a lot of things that need work, but we're continuing to say that if we look at this, well, that's the experience that a lot of our investors who come into our deals want to have too, because they want to find the piece of the puzzle that they're missing. Maybe it's to get some passive income to replace their income. Maybe it's to just be able to transition fully into real estate. Maybe they're just too busy, right? But they make a lot of income that they want to offset with depreciation, right? So always just understanding from the other side, what can benefit them as well. Because with wealth strategy for us, we can't always think of it as real time. We can say, okay, we can capture on what it is we want to do right now in this space, but looking outwards, like, what do we want that to provide for our future, right? I don't want to sacrifice moments for my children now. I mean, you have children. It's like, every day it's like they grow a foot, and so to say like, oh, we'll go do that later. No, well, let's do Legos later. Well, 2 years go down and maybe they're not interested anymore. Yeah. So the moment is now.
Yeah, no, definitely, Jason. And I think you really hit on the core of something, that's really, I would say, the basis of this, passive investing thesis, right? And I think all of us were sold a bill of goods from corporate America, from Wall Street and everything. And it's all about trading your time for money. Right. And it is that they paint this picture of, work for 40 years and then build up a nest egg and retire at 65. And then, like you said, go do all the things you want to do then. Right. But time is actually the greatest currency. And by focusing on this, passive investing theory, right, we're able to gain back time, and you're able to actually implement the things that you want to do, whether that's spending time with your family, growing your business, working on your health. I mean, all these things that are like really critically important. And I think ultimately it lives to living a life that's just much more intentional. Right, about what it is that you want to do versus being reactive and being controlled. But this really frustrates me, and it's one of the big points in my book and things that I'm trying to share with people as well. And I know you are too in this. Why we're kind of kindred spirits, right? Is to help people identify that we were sold a bill of goods, right? And there is a different way to think of it, because you had to go through all of those experiences. I went through all these experiences, but how can we circumvent that? How can you learn from our lessons and start earlier?
Yeah. The greatest thing that was said to me is like, when something poor happened, it was like, well, this too shall pass, right? And someone passed it along. Is we always think of things as the, be all end all. Right. And so when you think about that, it can make things almost like so hyper focused, so super critical. And you fast forward 5 years forward and you look back, you probably can't even remember the event, because at that moment, either you've grown stronger, but you've gotten by it. You're still living today. But in so many points, like I was having a conversation with someone earlier, and he was like, your feedback, like, I just don't like my job. It just sucks away my soul. Like, I was out of a job last year and I was actually making more money without it. But like, do I step out of your job? I'm like, the question comes back to you, right? I've grown up in an area where like, I've never really had a job. Like I've had jobs, but like, I've never really, like, it's not like I go to work 9 to 5. It's just been these things where I've found ways to continue to push forward. So I've always had this inconsistency, which I've just now understand even when you're investing, right? I don't force investments forward. We have investments that we find the right investments. And if that's 1 a quarter or 1 every 6 months or 2 a quarter, the time will tell, the market will tell. But I'm fine with that narrative, because I understand this is our path forward. And so for that person, my suggestion was, listen, the choice you make today does not need to be the be all end all, right? So if you leave your job and in 4 months your wife's like, I'm sick of seeing you every day, or the other point, like you just can't live with the uncertainty or depart. Well, it's better to at least know you tried, right? Because you couldn't find another job. You've already done it, right? But it's better to know that you have tried, and it just either works out great, which for this person I'm sure it will, because highly intuitive, right? Just to put his mind to it, right? But in the same fact, if it finds that it's not right, at least 20 years from now, you can say, at least I knew, at least I took that chance, instead of saying, I just don't want to go back and say, I wish I took that chance, right? And that's the hardest thing, is to look back and say, what if?
Yeah.
Because you don't really hear many people complain like, I did all these things in my life, it was horrible, right? It's usually, I wish I tried. I wish I went out there to see, to do this. And now, I'm 85 and I just can't.
Right. Right. Now, and I have to cite just a great little case study here. And I've been meaning actually to connect with you to bring my daughter and connect her with you. So she's been out of school. She's been out of school for 1 year, graduated college just over a year ago.
Wow.
And it's just amazing how much everything we're talking about right there, how much it really comes down to mindset. Okay. So most of all of the kids, right, that we're teaching, as your kids get older, right, they're going to follow in their parents' footsteps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's doing all that conventional thinking. Now, obviously, we don't have that in our household. I doubt you do in your household. So she's graduated school for a year. What did she do as soon as she graduated? She actually bought a house with her boyfriend in Tennessee. They did renovations and everything, bought at a good time. She also leveraged money out of her infinite banking policy to do the down payment. Okay. This is 23 years old, by the way.
Yep.
And then she bought the first house. They built up about $100K in equity so far in the house. Now they just translated some of that, and just so they're moving to Nashville, actually, like this week, literally moving to Nashville. And then they're going to rent out the other house, and they still have these equity gains that they're going to churn, and they want to start doing their next deal. So it's just so cool to see that kids can do that. And you can, everything we were talking about, it's never too early to start along this path.
There'll be so many people that say, well, I can't do that, I just won't know how. And your daughter, she had you, right, who can give her the confidence to, but she had to take that step, right? We can give all the confidence to someone, that she still has to take that step forward, right? So the clearest way to get to where you want to go is to start walking, right? And so to go out there and just take that action, that's incredible, right? But it just shows, like, go out there and take action, right? I'm sure, were there lessons learned, right? Was it the perfect renovation? No, nothing is. But he grew stronger and said, oh, well, it wasn't that bad. Here we are. And look what we've accomplished now. We're able to capture on equity. We're moving out. We were capitalized on our insurance policy. We've already built in there. Like, but that's incredible. And that's the story of just taking action and saying, like, look at all the good things that can happen. Because most of the time you get the feedback, because we're like, society is trained that, oh, if I buy this house, like it's going to have all these problems I won't know of, and it's going to, collapse, there'll be a fire. And like, our mind goes to the worst place. But when you say, well, if the worst place could be possible, why can't the best place be possible? Right. And that's here. And your daughter's, proof of a concept here is that you can have great things happen. Like, why should we always expect bad things to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. What if everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong? Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have, and get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage, and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com. So let's jump into mindset for a minute, Jason. And, I know you and I both share ultra endurance type events, challenging yourself mentally and physically. And to this day, I'm still super impressed of the ultra marathon that you did during the lockdown and COVID around your neighborhood. So tell us a little bit about your athletic journey and tell us about that, that event specifically, because that was just amazing. I watched you on that whole journey.
There's certain things that you just have to do for yourself out there, right? And so right now, I get up every day and work out. And like when I say every day, I'm gonna go down to Atlanta to see some of our properties tomorrow. I have to leave at like 5 a.m. I'm gonna get up at 2. Like it just like I just do this every day. It's just like what I've said I have to do. I have to do. Don't feel well, do it. Ear hurts, do it. Anything, right? You get up and do it. And I've set this narrative in a lot of ways. And I found that what that's allowed is that when I want to go out there and stress myself, right, for doing things like endurance runs, well, you can't, like if you've ever run a marathon, or you've thought about running a marathon, typically you can find like a marathon training program, like run 1 mile, then 2 miles, and 3 miles in 1 week. You build up some 20-mile runs, you kind of get adjusted, right? But if you're going to go out there and run 100 miles, it's not like you're like, hey, 2 weeks after an event, I'll go run 80 miles, right? So you're not, you don't know because you don't know, right? And so you don't know to the experience. And so to get out of the gate, and like in most of life, like we get scared away from the ledge because we're so worried about, the ends, right? I just can't get to the ends. Well, nobody actually get to the end, right? So the 100 miles, I've always broken it down into, okay, well, I've done 5 miles before, so let's just get 5 miles, right? And let's just get to the aid station. And then let's just figure it out, see where we go from there, right? Then let's get to the next aid station. Then let's, get to the bridge. And then let's get now to the next stop in for food. Let's go stop here. We could stop and say hi to families. We're at 50 miles. Then we get to 60 miles. And maybe it's like, let's get another 500 feet. Let's get to the alley, right? Let's run another 200 feet. Just figure it out and see what happens, right? Well, those are check marks. And lo and behold, you can be at 100 miles. And when you look at that in that concept, right? If I said at the moment, well, I'm going to run 100 miles today, my mind would be like, what? Like you've never done that before, so you can't do that. Like why you've never done it, right? And that's where our mind wants to protect us. But when you can say, well, I can accomplish these tasks. Let me just get to the first task and see what happens. So you can run 100 miles in 25-mile races. You've done 5 miles a time. So I've gone up every day consistently and run every day. Boom, 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 boom. So when I get to the race, right, they say the first 50 miles are your legs, the last 50 miles is your mind. And as I go through this race, I can ultimately experience different things. Like I could feel great 1 mile and feel like the world is collapsing next mile, right? Because your body's going through things, right? You're going through nights and days, right, as you go through these. But you've done it in other factors. And so you just use that. You've built up these experiences to be able to use that. And so I've continued to do that. And that's a lot with ultras, right? A lot with running in general is like a lot like life, right? Like it's not gonna be perfect. Weather's pouring out, okay, run. Snowing, run. 100 degrees, run. Like that's just it. Like we can't let the ultimate narrative, like what the weather is out there, to dictate our life. And so many times people do. Like it's raining today. I've tried to get my kids now to really have the mindset, like, don't tell me, oh, it's raining. No, it's raining. It's great, right? Like where would the world be without rain, right? Like where would it be? It's 100 degrees out today. Awesome. Like why not? Like why not treat every day like it's 75 and sunny if that's your perfect environment? Because it can be. And when you use that forward in your mindset and you're running, it can take you to new levels. And the ultra that I did, everything was in lockdown, so they're doing some virtual ultras. Is that, I did 4 25-mile loops, right? And the one piece of the puzzle is that, I did it. I tested in a car the one time to know it was 25 miles, but ended up being a little bit over, right? Ended up being about like 27 miles. So I ran 3 27-mile loops, and then, the piece of the puzzle is the unpredictability, right? Because if you have a path and it just says it's there was that English swimmer who was going to swim the English Strait, and she swam the whole thing, right? And she was a mile away from the end, and somehow the fog had come over and she had lost her way and she stopped, right? And she stopped. Like, why she stopped? She's like, I just couldn't see my way, right? And so sometimes the hardest part is when you don't have the clear objective. So that last 19 miles, I ended up running and finding myself like to the point that was the hardest point, because it dropped down, the temperature dropped, the body was depleted. I'm in the middle of the night. And here I am lost because I'm having an aimless pattern because I didn't have a objective path forward. So I found myself in a path forward, and a park I had run through earlier, they'd actually locked it. And then all of a sudden I'm locked in the park, and I get to the fence and I was like, man, well, I'm not going to run back. Like if I run back and I got to do all these extra, I was thinking like the Mandalorian, like this is the way. So you go over the fence, right? And I'm jumping in, I have these like frozen, frigid hands in November in New Jersey, trying to get up the fence, but you just made it through because that was that step forward. Because the way was to get back. But that last 19 miles, because it wasn't the 25 miles that was laid out in my mind, I had to get back to that narrative, just get to that next part and figure it out, right? Because the first 3 were easy, right? I was pacing the pacers because I had a path. But that last night, everybody had gone home, they'd done a great job. And the great thing about that is that, cool, I did that. But that day, I had 5 or 6 people run with me. Someone had never done longer than marathon, ran 37 miles. Someone had never run past 6 miles, ran like 15 miles. Someone had never run past 10 miles, did a marathon. I had all these people breaking records because we were just out there doing it. And it just became obvious that like, well, if I can do it, why can't they, right? And that's just the cool thing to see is like, it's us putting the cap on it. I was running with a friend trainer for a marathon, and he was like, I get to that 3 miles, it's at that stop sign, I always stop. I was like, all right, so let's just run 100 feet past the stop sign. That's all it took. And because every day he was with himself in his mind, he told him to stop at that stop sign. He stopped at a stop sign because that was all you do. We did it that one day. Next day, and that was 3 miles. Next day, he was at 4 miles. Then was 4.5. Then was 5. Because just that little piece of being like, well, what do you mean just run 100 feet more, right? But that's sometimes all it takes is that little part to just break up this rhythm that we get locked into in our life to change the whole narrative.
Yeah, no, that's really so inspiring, Jason. I really love it. And tell me as well, I mean, from a mindset perspective, I mean, what you had to do, it's such a great quote, right? 50% is physical. The second 50%, right, is all in your mind. And I've had many events like that as well, but tell us how that's translated for you into raising a family, being a father, growing a business, right? Having that mindset.
It's the path forward is unpredictable. We can do our best to protect it, but our kids are still gonna, have days they don't feel well. They're gonna stub their toe. They're gonna get cuts, right? Business, we're gonna do our best to have the best of all days happen, but there's going to be things that come up that are difficult in life and in business in just any form. And to ride the wave, as they say, if that's where the emotional stress, and that's where we all lose, is because we're just assuming that every pinnacle moment is the most important moment. But if we get back that if I have a healthy family and healthy kids, happy kids, and I can continue to engage and grow them, then I am doing my best. I'm doing everything I want to in life. And that will carry through to my life and my business here, because my ultimate goal is to be my best self. The kids see me, they see me, interacting with other people. And our point, if I was constantly angry, yelling at people, not using good language, or not providing like, what example am I setting up for them? Right. So even for now that we live in Tennessee, we live around a couple of our buildings, and we take them out and just show them how they're improving. Right. And teach them that we're making these better places to live. And although it's not where we live, there are people who are little kids just like them that live in this building that now they can have a nice place to live. They can go play in the playground. They can go out and do these things. Right. So we're showing them that we're doing these things to improve others, to improve the life of others. And if that message can carry forward on them and carry forward from them into others, right, that's going to set forth the best life for them.
Awesome. And why do you wake up at 4:32 a.m.?
It gets back to the running and working out, is that you have to do what you say you're going to do, right? And there's, our parents waking us up when we're young. There's other points, like it's so easy to let yourself off the hook. You want to go eat ice cream tonight? Go eat ice cream. You want to just, watch Netflix and not do what you're supposed to do? No problem, right? But it's us holding ourselves accountable that makes all the difference. Because it's funny, because it's easy to hold everybody else accountable, even though we're not holding ourselves accountable, right? You didn't do this, but we didn't do what we were saying we're going to do either. Sure. So if I'm going to show up and do as I say I'm going to do, right? You think of that. One, it's going to make me a better person. But two, like think about you and your investors. Like you show up, you tell them what you're going to do, and you do what you say you're going to do, right? And it carries through everything else you do in your life. It carries through how you act in your family. So that's also going to set the narrative for people to understand and like want to be around that type of person, right? If they ask me a question, we get back to them, right? If they have questions about the investment, we keep communication levels completely open. We have monthly communication with our investors. It's predictable, right? It's what we do and what we set out to do. And then on that part, it makes this certain pattern where really there is no other way.
Yeah. In the Marine Corps, they call that leadership by example.
There you go. Yeah.
And there needs to be more of that in corporate America and elsewhere. So why 432? Why not 430? Why the 432 number?
4-3-2-1, go.
Oh, got it.
When you do that, it makes everything easy.
Okay,
right?
Very cool.
Because maybe 425 today or 430. Now 4-3-2-1, go. Because once you're up, like it's never like I need to go back to bed, right? You're up. You're up. Like it's right. The point of like maybe I'll just hit snooze, 5 more minutes, 7 more minutes, 9 a.m. Boom, 4-3-2-1, get out of bed. You're not going back in bed.
Yeah,
and that's all it takes to get started.
Yeah, I've been getting up early my entire life. And, now it's really, I just cherish the time because it is the only time that, I work out as well every day. And it's the only time that, people aren't looking for you. And really, it's actually creating the space for yourself to have that thinking time. Right. And when you're working out, it's like amazing the thoughts that you can have, right? The endorphins are pumping and everything. Yeah. And, you're thinking about the new goals, all the things that you want to do. And then again, then I spend some time journaling that, right? And then so it becomes crystal clear on living that intentional life and really moving the ball forward, where you want to.
You have to protect your thoughts. If every day you wake up and you can't get past your own self, it doesn't matter what's awarded or what's afforded or what's in front of you, right? If you're not prepared yourself. And so when you wake up late, you're rushing, you eat something bad, you're in traffic, everything is chaos from the start. Like your life ultimately feels more chaotic. Yeah. And you can take the moment to set yourself in the right way. That not only carries over to your business, it carries over to your family, your fitness, everything.
Everything. Yeah, 100%. So tell us about your business right now. How are things progressing? The market's obviously shifting a lot right now. And you're focused in Tennessee, I believe. So tell us a little bit about that market. We haven't done any projects in that market. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, we, really excited about Nashville MSA. I stay really positioned in Tennessee on this area. I don't go over to Memphis or Knoxville or Clarksville. I really like this MSA. There's a ton of growth happening here, a ton of job dynamics that are really building, massive supply constraint, really continued demands, continued really elements here pushing this in the right way where it's just, the need for multifamily is there and there's no easy way forward to show how it's going to be met. And so we have a really good team here. We have great people under Yarusi Holdings here. We have a great management company here, and our assets have performed and continue to perform really well because we're providing great properties, right? Providing great service. So we're really bullish on this. We have some development projects coming up as well in this area, looking to meet that need and fill that need that's lacking because even in the town we live, there's a moratorium on multifamily being built if it's not zoned correctly, and they've actually downsized the RM character that says how many units you can get per acre. And they've done this for the faction that the sewer system, it's grown too much here for the sewer system to keep up, right? And so when you think about that, you say, wow, but they need housing, right? All my properties here are 100% occupied. It's like, so, and we're pushing the narrative on rents. And so if you look at that, you're like, no housing anywhere, you can't really build it, right? And so it shows a way that your one part is just controlling your debt to match with these properties to make sure you can control that side, that this market is a market that we want to grow within.
Yeah, very sure. And then how about from the debt markets right now? Has that been really impacting any deals in the pipeline?
We've had one that's been impacted. And it was more just on overpromise, underdeliver from the banker side. Yeah. But we've gotten past that. you have to look at the options here of what's your business plan and how does that equate to the debt, right? There's a lot of banks who are really still aggressive out there. They can be very good lenders here. Of course, their rates are changing too. And terms are changing. You see different terms, 5 years kind of pushing it and some different amortization, but it also is now making agency back to be more attractive too. And some of the properties are coming into Fannie and Freddie loans. So there's some of those options out there too that are also playing within our wheelhouse of what we have available to us.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, if you could give just one piece of advice to our listeners about accelerating their own wealth trajectories, what would it be?
You don't have to have a lot. I mean, you could start today and just do something, right? But you can listen. I'm sure you've listened to Dave a ton on the podcast. Like, take one thing he's doing and learn from it and just try the strategy and start putting it and implement it, even if it's on a small way, because that builds into bigger and bigger pieces, right? And so, whether it's infinite banking or, syndications or any of the narrative, right? You don't have to do everything. You have to do one thing good, and that one thing good will get big. I mean, with what we see out there today, it's like we have to do all these things at once, but no, you can do one thing good. I mean, look at so many people that have been massively successful. Like, maybe they're doing a lot now, but they've all started in one spot. So if you're looking to build yourself and build your wealth, find the one piece that needs to get you started and then take action.
Yeah, awesome. Jason, really enjoyed it. Appreciate you coming on the show today. Very grateful for that. How can folks find you, follow you, connect with you? We'll definitely put some notes in the show notes. But where's the best place to connect?
Yeah, Dave, I can't believe it's been a couple of years. So thank you so much for having me on and introducing it to your audience. So Jason Yarusi at yarusiholdings.com. YARUSI Holdings.com. You can find everything about us, Multifamily Live, our podcast, our 7-figure multifamily mastermind, and also what we're working on from multifamily side of investing.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jason. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.